I still remember the exact moment my entire family turned a Thanksgiving dinner into a financial trap for me. What I didn't know was that they weren't just asking for money, they were trying to rewrite my entire identity in front of 50 people. And the worst part? I used to think I was the lucky one in the family. My name is Avery Collins. I'm 31, and I used to work as a compliance analyst in Chicago. People always think compliance is boring, spreadsheets, reports, policy checks, but for me, it meant something else. It meant I understood how people try to bend rules without technically breaking them. I just never expected my own family to become my biggest case file. My family looked perfect from the outside. Big Thanksgiving gatherings at my parents' lake house in Wisconsin, polished smiles, expensive decorations, church-going reputation. But inside that house, everything was always transactional. My mother, Denise, controlled emotions like a CEO controls a boardroom. My father treated respect like it had to be earned through obedience. And my younger sister, Madison, was the golden child, the one who never did anything wrong, even when she clearly did. The Thanksgiving dinner started like a movie scene. If that movie slowly turned into a courtroom drama. The table was perfect. Golden roasted turkey in the center, candles glowing, expensive wine glasses, and about 50 relatives filling every corner of my parents' lake house in Wisconsin. Everyone was smiling. But I wasn't relaxed for even a second because I noticed something unusual right away. Nobody asked me how I was doing this year. Not a single person. Instead, they kept looking at me like they were waiting for something. My sister Madison was already sitting like she was the guest of honor. White satin dress, tiny rhinestone tiara on her head like she was celebrating a wedding instead of Thanksgiving. She smiled at me and whispered, "Don't make this awkward tonight, Avery." That was my first warning. My mother stood up before dinner started. She tapped her glass. "Before we eat, we have something important to discuss as a family." That sentence alone made my stomach drop, because in our family, important discussion never meant something good for me. Then my father pulled out a folded paper, not a speech, not notes, a notarized contract. He placed it directly in front of me like I was in court and said calmly, "Madison's wedding expenses are finalized. You will be covering $78,000. For a second, I thought I misheard. I actually laughed. "Sorry, what?" But nobody else laughed. Not even Madison. She just tilted her head and said softly, "It's already half planned under your card details. You're just confirming now." That's when I realized this wasn't a request. It was a setup. For a moment, I just sat there staring at the contract. $78,000. Not a conversation, not a discussion. A printed demand sitting in front of turkey and cranberry sauce. And then it hit me. Everyone at that table was watching me like I was already supposed to say yes. My aunt even smiled slightly, like this was some normal family tradition. My father leaned forward and said quietly, "This isn't negotiable, Avery. You make good money. It's your turn to contribute properly." My throat tightened. Properly? That one word felt like a slap. Madison sighed dramatically. "Avery, don't make this about money. It's my wedding. You're literally the only one who can make it happen." Then she added almost proudly, "I already told the planner you're handling it." That's when my fork stopped moving completely. My mother stepped in immediately, like she had rehearsed this moment. "You've always been independent. This is just you giving back to the family." Then she lowered her voice. "Don't embarrass us in front of everyone." And that's when I realized the real trap. It was never about the money. It was about the audience. There were 50 people watching, waiting, judging, already assuming I was selfish if I said no. One of my cousins whispered behind me, "Honestly, it's not that big for her. She works in finance." That line almost made me laugh because none of them understood what I actually did. I didn't print money. I prevented fraud, including situations exactly like this. Madison leaned back in her chair, smiling like she already won. "You always act like you're better than us anyway, Avery. Just sign it and stop being difficult." That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger, clarity. Cold, professional clarity. The room didn't feel like Thanksgiving anymore. It felt like I was sitting in a staged intervention where everyone already agreed on my role except me. I slowly pushed the contract away. I'm not signing this. That was it. Simple, calm. But in my family, calm was treated like rebellion. The silence that followed was immediate and heavy. Then my father exhaled like I had disappointed him in front of a crowd. You're really gonna do this here? Not a question, a warning. My mother didn't even look surprised. She just nodded slightly and said, I knew she would make this difficult. Then she did something I didn't expect. She picked up my plate, my full dinner, and walked it straight to the trash, before my eyes. You don't get to sit here and enjoy family meals while refusing family responsibilities. The sound of food hitting the bin echoed louder than any argument. A few relatives shifted uncomfortably, but nobody stopped her. Nobody. Madison leaned in closer, voice soft but sharp. You always do this. You act like you're above it all, then play victim when we react. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see my sister. I saw a system. Then my father stood up and walked to the side table. He picked up my car keys, my actual car keys, and slipped them into his pocket. You're not leaving until this is resolved. That line changed everything. Not because I was scared, but because I realized something terrifying. They genuinely believed they could control my life in real time. One of my uncles chuckled awkwardly. Come on, Avery, it's just helping your sister. Don't ruin the night. Just helping. That word again, like my existence was a utility service. Madison suddenly raised her voice slightly. You're embarrassing all of us right now. And then added, I already told everyone my wedding is basically confirmed because of you. That was the first crack. Not in me, in her story. Because now it wasn't just pressure, it was reputation. And reputation in a room full of 50 people is currency. I looked around the table, every face, every smile pretending this was normal. And I realized something simple but sharp. They weren't waiting for truth, they were waiting for compliance. So I stood up, slowly, and said one sentence. You might want to call your vendors before you call me selfish. For the first time that night, I saw confusion on their faces. Not anger, confusion. Because my sentence didn't fit their script. What do you mean, call the vendors? My father asked slowly. And that's when I realized they still didn't understand what was happening. Or worse, they did, and they just didn't think I could prove it. I took my phone out. Not dramatically, not shaking, just professionally. I think we should verify something before this goes further. Madison rolled her eyes immediately. Oh my God, Avery, stop acting like you're in a courtroom. I looked at her and said, I kind of am. That made her laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. My mother crossed her arms. This is not the time for your paranoia. That word again, paranoia. It was their favorite way of rewriting reality. So I tapped my screen and showed the first email. A venue deposit confirmation, then a second, a declined payment notification, then a third, a frozen account alert. The mood shifted instantly, not loudly, quietly, like oxygen disappearing from a room. My uncle leaned forward. Why is her card frozen? My mother answered too fast. She has anxiety about financial control sometimes. I almost laughed out loud, because that wasn't even creative anymore. It was lazy. Madison frowned slightly. That doesn't matter. The booking is still confirmed. And that's when I looked at her, directly, calmly, and said, no, it isn't. Silence. Then I added, the card was locked 2 years ago after an unauthorized attempt to add a user. It never got reactivated for shared use. That sentence landed differently because it wasn't emotional, it was factual. For the first time, Madison didn't speak immediately. She just blinked, once, twice. My father stepped closer. Stop this, you're making things worse. I shook my head. I'm not making anything worse. I'm showing you what already happened. Then I said the line that changed everything. If the venue thinks I'm paying, someone here used my identity without authorization. That word hit harder than money. Identity. A cousin whispered, wait, used her identity? Someone else stopped eating completely. Even the air shifted. Madison suddenly stood up. That's insane.
I booked everything under your card because you told me. She stopped, mid-sentence, realizing what she just said. I tilted my head slightly. You told them what? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. And that was the moment I saw it clearly. The story wasn't just breaking, it was collapsing.
The moment Madison stopped talking, the room didn't explode, it froze. And in that freezing silence, I realized something important. This was no longer just a family argument. This had crossed into something else, something traceable, something documentable, something real. My father tried to regain control immediately. This is getting ridiculous. We are not discussing identity theft at Thanksgiving. But nobody laughed this time, not even the relatives who usually followed his lead, because I had already shown them too much. And once people see cracks, they don't unsee them. My phone vibrated. One message, unknown number. Hi, Avery. This is Ethan Mercer. I think we need to talk. I didn't know it yet, but that message was the first domino. I excused myself calmly. I need a minute. Madison snapped, "Don't walk away like you're innocent." I paused at the edge of the table, looked back, and said, "I'm not innocent. I'm just finally informed." Outside, the cold air hit differently. Not emotional anymore. Clarity again. That same compliance-trained clarity. I called Ethan. He picked up fast. "You're Avery, right? I'm Nolan's cousin." That name meant nothing to me yet, but his next sentence changed everything. "My family thinks your name is being used for wedding payments." I closed my eyes, so it wasn't just me. He continued, "I've already paid part of a catering deposit because I was told you were covering major costs." That line made my stomach drop. "Why would I be covering anything?" I asked. He paused. "Because your mother said you were managing a family trust." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurdly familiar. Back inside, I could still hear faint arguing. Madison raising her voice. My father trying to shut it down. My mother insisting it was all a misunderstanding. But something had already shifted. The room wasn't theirs anymore. Ethan said quietly, "If this is false, my family is about to lose a lot of money." I answered just as quietly, "Then we should make sure they don't lose it blindly." And that was the moment I made the decision. Not revenge, not anger, strategy. I told him, "Send me everything you have, messages, claims, anything with my name." He didn't hesitate, already doing it. When I hung up, I didn't feel powerful. I felt precise, like everything was finally being placed in the correct file. Back at the house, I didn't re-enter, not yet, because now I understood the bigger structure. My family wasn't just manipulating me, they had expanded the circle, and outside people were already involved. And that meant one thing: this was no longer controlled by emotions, it was controlled by evidence. When I walked back inside, the atmosphere had changed completely. Not calmer, just fractured. People weren't eating anymore, nobody was laughing, conversations were half-finished and abandoned. And the worst part? Everyone was watching me differently now. Not like a daughter, not like a problem, like evidence. My father stood up as soon as I entered. "Where did you go?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I looked at the table. Then I said quietly, "This is bigger than tonight." Madison snapped instantly. "Stop acting like you're some victim in a documentary." I turned to her, and for the first time, I didn't raise my voice. "I'm not acting." I opened my phone again. This time, I didn't show emails. I showed messages, screenshots, voicemails, names, dates. And I said one sentence that changed the room. "Multiple people outside this house have already been told they were dealing with my financial authority." That never happened. Silence. A deeper silence this time. My uncle finally asked, "Outside people?" I nodded. "Yes. Vendors, a third-party family, even someone who already paid money based on false claims." Madison's face went pale. I didn't." She stopped again, because every explanation she tried to reach collapsed before it formed. My mother stepped forward. "This is a misunderstanding that can be fixed privately." I shook my head. "No, it can't." And then I added the line that ended the illusion, "because it's already been documented by people who are not in this room." That's when my phone buzzed again. "Ethan, my family wants to meet you. Tomorrow. They're pulling out of everything." And just like that,
The wedding wasn't just unstable anymore, it was structurally failing. My father lowered his voice. "You're destroying your sister's life." I looked at him and answered, "No, I'm removing myself from the system that uses my life to build hers." Madison suddenly shouted, "You're jealous of me. You always have been." That would have hurt me once. Not anymore. Because jealousy doesn't build spreadsheets of evidence. Truth does. I turned slightly toward her and said calmly, "If I was jealous, I wouldn't be the one everyone calls when things go wrong." That line landed harder than I expected. Even she didn't respond. Within minutes, my phone exploded. Messages, calls, unknown numbers. But one stood out. A vendor, then another, then Ethan again. The chain reaction had started. My father grabbed his phone, and for the first time that night, I saw panic. Not anger, not control. Panic, because someone had already called him before I could explain anything further. "Denise, what did you do?" he whispered. My mother didn't answer, because she already knew. The narrative was gone.
By the next morning, it didn't feel like a family situation anymore. It felt like a financial investigation that had escaped containment. My phone hadn't stopped ringing since midnight. Vendors, relatives, unknown numbers, even people I didn't know existed in this story. And every message carried the same tone. What is actually going on? The wedding was officially gone by sunrise. Not postponed, canceled. Contracts suspended, deposits frozen, vendors refusing any further communication until legal clarification. And for the first time in my life, my family couldn't control the narrative with emotion anymore. Only facts were left. My father called me at 7:14 a.m. I answered. He didn't shout. That alone felt strange. He said only one sentence, "We need to fix this." I replied calmly, "You mean we need to face it?" Silence. Then he hung up. At noon, Madison showed up at my apartment. No tiara, no perfect makeup, just exhaustion. She didn't even knock properly. She just stood there like she had run out of roles to play. "I didn't think it would go this far," she said. I believed her, but that didn't change anything, because intent didn't erase impact. She whispered, "They're blaming me now." That was the first time I saw her without the shield of entitlement, just a person who finally ran out of someone else to stand behind. I looked at her and said, "You weren't the only one involved, but you were involved." She nodded slowly. No argument this time, no performance, just truth sitting between us. Later that day, something unexpected happened. Nolan's family formally confirmed in writing they would not proceed with any wedding-related obligations, and they were referring all financial misrepresentations to legal counsel. That sentence alone ended the entire structure my parents had built, because now it wasn't family drama, it was documented liability. My mother called me after that, not angry, not controlling, quiet. "We didn't mean to destroy everything," she said, and I finally understood something important. They still believed intent mattered more than harm. I replied, "But you did destroy it." She cried, but it wasn't the kind of crying that fixes anything. It was the kind that arrives after consequences have already been assigned. Then came the final twist. Ethan texted me again. "There's something you should know. My aunt checked records. This isn't the first time your family used your name. There are older claims tied to other relatives too." I stared at that message for a long time. Not shocked, just clear. This wasn't a single incident. It was a pattern, and patterns don't apologize. They repeat until they're stopped. A week later, my family held a private video call with relatives. They apologized, formally, on record. My father admitted I had never agreed to fund anything. My mother acknowledged they had made unauthorized financial representations using my name. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't pretty, but it was real. And that was enough. After the call, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel angry either. I felt something quieter, final. I moved to Richmond for a promotion a month later. New apartment, new city, no inherited expectations sitting in the background of every decision. My life didn't become perfect, but it became mine. Sometimes people ask me if I forgave them. The honest answer is, forgiveness stopped being the point. The point was no longer participating in a system where my silence paid for someone else's comfort. And here's the truth I learned the hard way. Some families don't break because of betrayal. They break because the person they depended on finally stops absorbing the damage. If I had one sentence to end this with, it would be this. The day I stopped being useful in their story, I finally started living in my own.